Welcome to the Alain Guillot podcast, a podcast about life, leadership, and money matters. Our guest today is Matt Drayton. Matt is an author, speaker, and consultant. He writes and speaks about leadership and success. He served 26 years in the US Army, out of which he spent 16 years working with elite special operation forces. He's the founder of Drayton Communication, and today we'll speak about his second book, Leading While Black, Leadership Strategies and Lessons for Today's Black Professional. Matt, thank you so much for joining me today.
Elaine, thanks for having me. Glad to
I
be here.
I love hearing stories of success, stories where a person is coming from nowhere, from let's say underprivileged neighborhood, and somehow climbing the ladder of success in life and achieving all the success that you have achieved. You are a writer, you are a speaker, you are financial independent, you teach people how to become better leaders. And this is the kind of example that people are hungry to hear. So I'm just eager to hear about your story. Can you tell us, first of all, I read in your book that you come from an underprivileged neighborhood. Can you tell us about your early years?
Yes, Elaine, let me first thank you for having me and thanks for the kind words. So I grew up in Georgia. I'm an only child. I grew up in an underprivileged neighborhood. You know, there was a lot of, bad things around when I was growing up. My mother died when I was 6 years old, so it was just me and my father. And when my father would go to work, a lot of times I was what they called a latchkey kid. I would let myself in and out of the house, but I got into a lot of trouble. And, I took my first ride in a police car when I was 11 years old. I was throwing rocks at moving cars, something I shouldn't have been doing. But, it's pretty traumatizing for an 11-year-old to be in the back of a police car. Fortunately, that was my last ride, but I never got in a police car again after that. But it was sobering for me for that to happen. And so growing up, like I said, got into a lot of trouble, a lot of things were negative. However, after high school, one day I was taking a little jog and I ran by a recruiting station, military recruiters. I stopped and looked up at the sign and I said, I'll walk in here. Two things I'll tell people. Don't ever walk into a recruiting station without a plan because they will get you. And listen, I'm thankful that I joined, but I was not prepared. And the recruiter, he sold me a lot of stuff and he was talking real fast. And the next thing I knew, I had signed up to go. Initially, I went in the military just to gain some financial independence and get away from Georgia where I was living, just to travel a little bit. But as you said earlier, that wound up being 26 years for me. And I retired at the rank of Sergeant Major.
Before joining the military, you tell us in your book that you did work in a few low-paying jobs. You were working in a supermarket. You work also as a waiter here and there. So you were doing the things that you had to do in order to have some cash and to have some money without getting into trouble. Now, my question is that for you, I have the feeling that you knew that this was a transitory situation and that you wouldn't be a server or stocking supermarket shelf for the rest of your life. However, I see many people that see this as the perpetual state of their life. I wonder if you could tell. And then I see people fighting to get a salary raise from 14 to, let's say, $15 an hour. And I think they're fighting the wrong fight. I feel like instead of fighting for a few more cents in their job salary, they should be aiming for a higher goal. But I don't know, what's your opinion on that?
So you mentioned the jobs I had as a waiter, a bus boy. I worked as a stock boy and a bagger at a grocery store. I always looked at those as jobs, transitional jobs for something of a higher goal. I've always been pretty driven. But, I will tell you this, Elaine, a lot of people, for various reasons, they don't have the skills or the fortitude to just push forward and look for something else. A lot of people are satisfied with just, being able to get a paycheck. But I do think that with all of the opportunities that are out there today, especially now with the pandemic and everything that's been happening, there's a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunities for people to advance out there. But I agree with you that I think people should look to always advance, and those jobs that I started out in should be transitional jobs for everyone. But a lot of people sometimes, for various reasons, educational, it can be something physical or mental, they can't advance past those. So I don't want to, if you're making an honest living, you're making an honest living, and you should be applauded for that.
Right.
But I agree with you. There's so much more out there. You should always strive to do better.
Yeah, I think I had a lot of common with you when I came here to Canada. For a while, I was an illegal alien, and I work as a janitor. I work at supermarkets. I work as a busboy, not even a waiter, because the boss didn't want me up front facing the public. But I knew that those things were transitory as well. And then later on, I move on. So I wish you and I could motivate more people in order to get them out of, I don't know, motivate them to have higher goals. But I think I'm overstepping there. You mentioned that for whatever reason, some people that's their stage of their life.
Well, I will say this, Elaine, I don't think you're overstepping, because sometimes all people need is to hear it from someone like me or you. If I tell my story and you tell your story, then maybe they look at things different. So you're not overstepping. I don't think it's wrong to expect more out of people and try to push them to do more. I think that is a service that is helping them. But there are people that, for whatever reason, can't make those leaps, and is not as fortunate as you and I, and don't have the work ethic as well to work as hard as we did. So
okay, great. Okay, so you without a plan, you walk into this recruiting office, and this fast-talking recruiter who's sharply dressed, as he should, because of course he wants to create a good impression, and he wants to tell you how you can be a leader too, and you can be all you can be, etc., etc. Talk you into, well, you jump into that trap. And then what is it, 6 months later, you were in the military camp. Can you tell us about your early days in the military?
Yeah. So again, like I said, so I leave the recruiter's office, and then, it kind of hit me on the way home. I'm like, man, I just pretty much signed my life away. So anyway, I got home and I told my father, I said, hey, Pops, I need to talk to you. I said, hey, I signed up to go in the military. And he goes, wait a minute, that guy tricked you, man. We're going to go take you back down there and get you out of this, and which I don't know if he could have done that or not. However, I said, no, I think this is something I need. I need the discipline. I need to be able to go out on my own and see the world and get away from the environment I'm in right now and see what else is out there. So that's what I did. And so like you said, 6 months later, I signed up on a delayed entry program. So 6 months later, excuse me, I'm standing in Fort Jackson in the freezing cold with some drill sergeant yelling at me, making me do push-ups. And of course, at that point, I'm thinking, man, I don't know if I made the right decision. But I will tell you, the military was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, not only from a standpoint of making me a better man and a better person, but it gave me a sense of purpose. It allowed me to give back to my country, to give back to others. I met my wife there, so a lot of good came out of it. And I am a forever changed person because of my military service.
When you told your father that you were going to the military, you mentioned in the book that he's not the kind of person who is who express emotions easily. And you made a commitment to yourself not to be that kind of father. So I wonder if you could talk about that, the relationship between father and son, and how expressive and emotional we should get, if it's okay to show tenderness and love, or it should be rigid and strict.
Elaine, I'm very glad you asked me that. One of the things, and I don't know about other cultures, but I will tell you, in the Black family, for men to show any kind of emotion or empathy towards other men, it's just not done. I mean, you're rough, you're tough, you're rigid. You know, my father, he passed away in 1985. I was 25 years old. My father never hugged me. My father never told me he loved me. Now, I know he did. However, that stuff just wasn't done. So men were men back then. And I will say this too, Elaine, I don't blame him for how he raised me, because that's all he knew. You know, there's cycles, there's generational cycles of how things are done in families, you know, some good, some bad. But what I did when I had, and I'm a father of two girls, so that's a little different, because I think men are harder on their sons just by rule, because they know what they're going to face when they get out there, especially Black boys. So, but I made a concerted effort to change that with my children. And so right now, today, my children are grown, but we have very good relationships. We stay in touch. And I was always different with them than my father was with me.
The title of the book is Leading While Black. So you are using the connotation of while Black. And I wonder, what was it like to serve in the military while Black?
Okay, so first, let me tap on the title a little bit. So while Black always has a negative connotation with it. So there's driving while Black, working while Black, you know, all these other things. So it's always something negative. So in the books I've written, I've always tried to put while Black being something positive. So Leading While Black was the title I came up with. As far as being a leader in the military as a Black man, there are challenges for all leaders, but Black men deal with some different things. You know, there was back in August of last year on 60 Minutes, Secretary of Defense Austin, who is the current Secretary of Defense, he's a retired Black Army general. He did an interview on 60 Minutes, and he talked about his career as a Black Army officer. And one of the things he talked about, when he was an operations officer in the 82nd Airborne Division, he would let a white officer give the operational briefing because he knew and he felt that the soldiers in his organization, especially the white ones, would not accept or challenge them as much as they would challenge him. He said that. You can look this article up. It's out on YouTube. I would encourage you and your listeners to go out and look and watch that if they haven't seen it. The other thing he talked about, you know, he said, hey, you know, he said, there's not a day that I don't wake up that I don't think about the fact that I'm a Black man. And I listen, you know, there will be people that will say, hey, well, you know, you're given a hand, you got to play the hand you're dealt. And yeah, that hand for me is being a Black man. And I have done well with it because I have a level of strength and education to handle these things. But I will tell you, I've dealt with young men and I've worked with at-risk youth. They're not equipped to deal with some of the things that Black leaders and Black men in general deal with in the public. So it was a lot of challenges for me, but I was able to deal with those challenges. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to share some of the things that I've learned over my 40 years of government and military service in dealing with, you know, being in a leadership position and having to get things done and try to share some of the lessons and strategies that I went through so that young people coming up, young Black leaders and all leaders will be able to navigate those better than I had.
Right. Okay. So our conversation is mostly based on leadership, but just to stay a little bit longer on the military, and I am not a witness of this, but it's been said that joining the military is something that mostly people who have difficult economic backgrounds join more than people who are at ease financially. And I wonder, what is your opinion? Is this something that people do out of financial necessity or patriotism, or what is your insight from being in the military?
My opinion, that's a good question. My opinion on that one is, I think a lot of minorities do it more out of financial necessity. I think a lot of the Caucasian males, I would say a majority of them, do it more out of patriotism or out of a family type lineage. Because throughout my career, I encountered many people from all races who had different reasons from being in there. But I had, as a matter of fact, I had a young man that was worked for me at Fort Bragg. After talking with him for a while, his dad was a millionaire. The only reason he came in was to get some discipline, to work on himself as a leader, so he could go back out and run his father's business. And which was very interesting to me. I mean, I was fascinated with this kid. He was very smart. When he came in the military, he had a master's degree. He was just a brilliant kid, but he worked for me and he was smarter than I was. Because that's how the military works. Rank, is if you're senior to someone, you're senior to them, regardless of what kind of degrees or education that person has. But I think patriotism probably more for a lot of the Caucasian males and females that go in there. And then I think just a lot of minorities, I truly believe, at least in my case, it was purely financial and to have a better life.
I promise this is my last question about race, but
no, that's okay. I mean, it's all right.
Okay, so the U.S. military, I mean, this is a place that help you out a lot, help you with your leadership skills, help you expand your horizons. But at the same time, there are police killing Black people out there. And I wonder how you reconcile the fact that you are fighting for this nation, risking your life, while at home there are policemen, they are the George Floyd of the world being killed by police people. And I wonder if there is some kind of friction there.
Well, so here's what I believe and what I have experienced. So most of the military people that I know, they can separate and compartment the two, okay? So when you sign up to serve in the military, you take an oath, all right? And that oath is to defend the Constitution. So that's what we do. And I don't know of one soldier that I've ever come across, or sailor or airman or Marine, that has, and I'm talking an African-American, a Black soldier, that has said, hey, I don't want to serve, I don't want to do my duty because of what's happening with social justice. Now, so I want to just clarify that I have not come across that, and I know when I was on active duty, on active duty, and as a Department of Defense civilian, I did not have that mentality, because too much is at stake when you're talking about people's lives. When you've got those kind of thoughts, it's probably not a good thing, for the people that are out there in harm's way. But the social justice thing does need to be addressed, okay? Listen, I took one ride in a police car in my life. I was 11 years old. I have not had any kind of criminal record. I've never been to jail. I don't have any of that. But I have been pulled over multiple times and treated like I was a criminal. Okay. Now, I handle that differently. I realize that, if you escalate, you're in a position, you're not in a position of authority. And that's one of the other things. Several years ago, I wrote an article that got picked up kind of nationwide about police stops and how to deal with that. When I worked with at-risk youth in North Carolina, we had the police come talk to these young Black boys about how to handle police stops. And listen, I'm not saying that you're gonna always be able to walk away from a police stop unscathed if you do certain things, but I would implore every Black male, anybody, if you get pulled over, you be respectful and you deal with it like an adult, you probably have a different outcome. And it just breaks my heart. Unfortunately, there's so many people out here that just, they don't have the training. They don't have the understanding of how to deal with law enforcement. And so that's kind of where we're at. But there, I've got I've got my brother-in-law, my wife's brother is a retired police officer in Atlanta. And I've worked with law enforcement my whole career. And I've had some bad experiences with some of the guys I work with. So there's some issues there.
Wow.
There are people, not all, but there are people who use that badge in the wrong way. And those people, the ones they need to weed out. But I will tell you this, the last thing I'll say on it, there's last I checked a few years back, there was like 900,000 sworn officers in the whole country, in the whole United States. Now, if you think about the fact that there's 300 million people here, we are basically governing ourselves here. Because if we ever decided to just have pure anarchy, there's not enough law enforcement to stop it.
Right.
So
Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
You did. Let's go into leadership. Okay, so wow, 26 years in the U.S. Army. You did Special Operation Forces. What are some lessons? I mean, it's a long time. And that's why you wrote a book, of course, but tell us about some of the leadership lessons that you learned that you can not only transfer for yourself in the civilian world, but you can share with us, the rest civilians.
So as you can imagine, with that, serving that long, you learn a lot. But I will tell you, two of the big ones for me were accountability and compassion. So being accountable and being responsible for what you do, and being responsible for others is key to leadership. So there's, I heard something on the radio today. I listen to sports radio most of the time, and one of the guys, he's kind of a philosopher king, at least he thinks he is. Anyway, so he was out there talking about how much of our lives we control. And he said, hey, we control a lot of our lives based on how we deal with things and how accountable we are and how we hold ourselves accountable. So one of the things I try to do as a leader and as a person in my personal life is look at what could I have done? Any situation that comes in my life that's problematic. I ask myself, hey, could I have done something different? Me, not anyone else. I'm not, could I have done something different to affect the outcome of this? So I think if more people do that, we'll have more people take responsibility and accountability for what they do, then we'll have a lot of the problems we have in America will go away. The other one is compassion. When I first went in the military, I joined at a time when it was right after Vietnam. So it was really tough, man. I mean, people, you could get beat up, the sergeants could hit you, you know what I mean? Everybody smoked, everybody drank, different military than it is today. And there was no compassion. I mean, like if you were hurt or you had an injury or something, you couldn't tell anybody, you just what we'd say would suck it up, just drive on with it. And but as I went on through the years, I started learning that, as a leader, you have to have that compassion, and that it doesn't mean that you just feel sorry for people all the time. But what it means is you understand the suffering that people are going through, and then you want to see that suffering end. So you do what you can to help that. And there was others, I learned to listen, listen to people, understand them, get to know people, get to know who's on your team, know something about them personally, not just, this is just some guy over here. Like I said, with that kid I was telling you about, his name was Keith Steinmetz. The kid was a millionaire. Had I never walked over and talked to him, I would have never known anything about his story, The other thing, one of the other lessons I learned too is just address problems when they arise. If something comes up, if there's a conflict, let's deal with it right now. Let's get all the parties that are involved in that conflict, and let's solve it right now. Letting things fester or letting problems prolong, they don't get better, they get worse.
Wow. I must admit, I have in the leadership realms, I have problems with compassion that you just mentioned. I feel like I'm compassionate with members of my team, whatever team I'm working with, but outside of my team, I have noticed that I have very little empathy, and I have mentally tried to fix that. But I just say to myself, and this is bad self-talk. I said, wow, I was a janitor, I was an illegal alien, I was starving, and now I made it through. So everybody else should be able to make it through. And I know that is not the right way to look at things. I am intellectually aware of that, yet I haven't been able to solve that problem internally.
Yeah, I understand that. And when you said that earlier, after reading your story, I can understand, because anyone who's done what you've done will feel that way. And that's why, and I've pretty much done the same thing. I mean, I'm not supposed to be sitting where I am. I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. I don't want for anything. I've got resources. I've got good friends, connections. I've got a wonderful family. I mean, I have the American dream. And this is not what was lined up for me where I grew up. That wasn't. So I had to overcome a lot of obstacles. And I was at one point a lot like you are right now with the way you say you think. But after, and I will tell you what did it for me. One thing about the military, they put you through a lot of training. Okay. And there was a PhD female. She was a Hispanic woman. When I went to the Sergeant Major Academy, this lady talked about compassion, and she talked about conflict, and she talked about self-care. This was way back before self-care even became a thing. And we must have had 25 or 30 speakers come talk to us while I was out at that academy. But that lady, what she had to talk about resonated with me the most, because she was passionate about it and it made a lot of sense. So from that point forward, I tried to give people the benefit of the doubt as to why they were the way they were as far as success. And there are publications out there to look at for this kind of thing. In my book, there's a whole chapter on it. I don't know if you made it that far, but there's a chapter on it, and it's a good one, and it's just a good thing. I will tell you this: if you start showing it, I think it changes your life, because one, people will do almost anything for you if you just show them that you care about them sincerely, and people can tell if you're sincere or not. And then secondly, it gives them it gives you a sense of it's doing what's right. You're looking at people and trying to relieve the suffering they're going through at a particular time in their lives.
Great. Okay. It is my belief that in order to become a good leader, you have to be a good follower. And I find it easy to be a good follower if the leader is right. I find it more difficult to be a follower when there is some question marks around the leaders. But can you tell us about the importance of being a good follower?
Yeah, so learning how to follow is extremely, extremely important. You cannot be a good leader if you're not a good follower. And during my military career, I served with military leaders who were just horrible followers. And I'll give you an example. So if you're in a staff meeting and you're sitting there and all you're talking about is how incompetent or inept your boss is, well, you're not a good follower, because right. I will tell you, after being in a leadership position, there's always something coming down from the top that doesn't always make it down to the lower levels in an organization. And so a lot of times leaders will just not say, okay, I'm not going to say that Elaine is the one pushing this policy out. I'm just going to enforce it. And we'll get through it. But a lot of times you have leaders that do that. They've got to talk about, they can't follow. And you can't be a good leader if you can't follow. And so I truly believe that.
Okay. And Another aspect of good leadership is to mentor people. And I guess this is the way you don't need a rank or you don't need a title or you don't need someone to give you, tap you with a magic wand to declare you a leader. You can be a leader just by helping others. So tell us a little bit about mentorship and how is it important in our day-to-day relationships?
Yeah, Elaine, one more thing though, I want to follow up on the follower thing, one more thing on that, because so I talked to you, so you talked about when it's hard to follow sometimes when and listen, we've all worked for people that we could tell they were in over their head, okay?
Mm.
And there's not much you can do about it, but I will say this. A lot of times, if you've got a good idea or you've got a solid solution to a problem and you take it to that leader one-on-one, just pull them off to the side, don't do it in front of a lot of people. It is very hard for somebody to walk away from a good solution, especially if it's going to help them. So I've had that happen. I have, and what that is called is kind of leading upwards is what it's called.
Right. Yeah.
So look, on many occasions, you may have somebody working for you that may have 10 more years experience than you do at that particular job. So then that person knows more. So then, you know what I mean? So they may have more solutions. So that's another way to deal with, being a follower. Now to the mentoring piece. So mentoring is, and I want to talk about it initially first for just Black men. So Black men need to do a better job of allowing themselves to be mentored and seeking mentors out. And those mentors do not have to be Black or white or any race. It could be anyone who can help you get to where you want to be. That's what a mentor is. It's not, it's somebody who is an expert at something or someone who is doing something that can help you get to where they are. And I think there's a lot of, again, it goes back to that pride that we as Black men have. One of the big problems on college campuses, Black males on a lot of the college campuses are almost extinct because when they get there, they refuse to go to guidance counseling. It's like, it's almost like, hey, I can't ask for help. If I go ask somebody for help, I'm weak. Mm-hmm. And we got to get out of that mentality. So mentoring is very important. Getting to know somebody that has been where you're trying to go and help. And most people, if you go to them and say, hey, listen, I've been watching you and I noticed that you have been doing a good job here. Can you help me, navigate my way through this organization? Rarely will anybody say no.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So mentoring is very important. And I think we don't put enough emphasis on it. The word's thrown around a lot, but having done it in the corporate world and as a person did it with at-risk youth, I can tell you it's very valuable. One of my mentees, he finished Marine Basic a couple of years ago, and he's out in California right now as a U.S. Marine.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You are completely right on that. I wonder if you could tell us. You have a chapter about networking and I guess helping each other out to groups. Can you tell us about how can we become better networkers?
Yes. So one of the things, so I was joked with guys. I'd say, hey, when I was a young man, I was an athlete, and I always thought golf was just the stupidest sport in the world, right? So I mean, I played basketball, football. I'm a jock, right? You're not a real guy if you play golf. Well, what I started to learn later on in life is, so when everybody leaves the office to go play golf, that's where a lot of business is getting done. So to play 9 holes of golf, you get 2 hours. To play 18 is 4 hours. That is 4 hours you get to spend with the boss, all the people in the office that are out there making the decisions. But now, if you don't want to pick up those clubs and go out there with them, you're back in the office. A lot of stuff has changed and happened by the time they get back, and you're out of the loop on it.
Wow.
So, I use that analogy because, a lot of times we think about, hey, man, that's a stupid party. I'm not going to go to that thing, or, I'm not kissing butt. I'm not going to go over here and kiss people's butt and hang out at these social events. But a lot of times the social events is where a lot of this stuff happens. And I have seen this happen where leaders just refuse to go to events, whatever they may be. And I'm not saying you have to do this, but if all the leadership is gathering at an event, be it a golf tournament, a social at night, I mean, these things are thrown for a reason. You got to go to these things and participate in them. The other side of that is just getting to know other people outside of your comfort zone. I've always been pretty outgoing, as you probably can tell. I can talk to people. I talk to complete strangers. Used to drive my kids nuts, when I did it. But that's how I grew up. But everybody's not like that. So you have to make an effort to let people know you're there. Let them know you care. Let them know something about you. Open up a little bit. We all have vulnerabilities. It's not a weakness if you like something. Maybe you share it with somebody. So networking is very, very important.
Wow. The last thing I want to ask you, from your career in the military and then after the military, is your speaking skills. You are a speaker now. I wonder, first of all, how is it that you became interested? And then secondly, how is it that you learn, and why do you decide to make it a part of your next stage in your life?
Well, so I've always liked teaching, sharing information with people. I did it in the military. I was a non-commissioned officer, so it was a requirement for me to stand in front of groups and give classes and give presentations. During my time, as a civilian in the U.S. Army, for the U.S. Army, I was continually briefing senior leaders, general officers, and sometimes senior civilians. So that came natural. So what I decided to do was to go out and get certified and become a member of the National Speakers Association, which is what I did. I opened a speaking business, and I started to speak about leadership and productivity and do keynote speeches for certain events. And so I've been doing that since 2006. Keynote speech is 20 minutes. It's tough. You stand up in front of 400 people and you've got to deliver something. Right. And you've got to get them to engage with you. Mm-hmm. And it's a challenge, and I enjoy it. And I put a lot of work in it. Sometimes for 20-minute speech, I'll work 80 hours putting that speech together. Yeah. To write a speech, and when you hear the president or a senator or somebody give a speech, there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Right. Another aspect about reading about you, your story, is that you are financial independent. And I ask you this because my podcast started a long time ago as a personal finance podcast. And we used to talk about investments, mutual funds, ETF, whatever. I wonder what was the route that you took in order to become financial independent?
So early on, now probably just like everybody else, money used to burn my pockets. I mean, if I got some money, man, I was buying stuff. I'd go. When I first got married, there was a store called Montgomery Ward. They're no longer around. I think Sears absorbed them. But anyway, Montgomery Ward would give anybody a credit card. So they gave me this credit card, and man, I'd just go in there and buy everything. And then at some point, you look and you're in debt. So I will tell you, the simple thing for me was this. And I saw it somewhere, and it was either a quote or something that said, "Look, the most simple thing you can do is spend less money than you make." So don't spend more money than you make. And so after I started doing that, I started paying some things off. Of course, I started making rank in the military, so my pay went up. But I started investing, mutual funds, some stocks. I started, paying things off, buying things in cash. Most things we get, my wife and I, we went and purchased a television yesterday and a surround sound system for it. We paid cash for it all because that is, the way, there's no interest, none of that. Just pay it, it's done. And so that's that's been my method. Just basically do some investing. Most of my investments are very safe. I don't take a whole lot of risk. I take some risk. I just started playing around with the crypto stuff. I just got my toe in the water on that. You know, I'm not knee deep in it because I still don't fully understand it. There's a commercial out, you've seen it, where the guy says, "I'm a millionaire." I'm not a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. Every 2 minutes, he's a millionaire, and then he's not. You know what I mean? But I believe that young people, the younger you are, the better you. You know, if I had started when I was like 20 years old, I'd probably be a millionaire now. But you know, again, you can't miss something you never had. However, it's always wise to spend less money. Don't spend more money than you make.
Right.
You
That's, I
know,
think that's
that's
it.
that's the bottom line. If you do that alone, you're going to be better off.
And let time do its work.
Right, and be patient.
Right. Okay. So then, being that you are financial independent, how come you're still hustling? How come you're not in Mexico drinking margaritas? I see you are launching a book, you are speaking, you are doing so many
Yeah.
things.
So everything I do now is enjoyable for me.
Right.
You know, I don't work a job. I don't have a job like I don't go into a job every day. I can travel when I want. I can do everything I'm doing here. I can do from another location. You know, I take my laptop. So I don't. So for all intents and purposes, I am retired. But my writing, my speaking, and all that stuff is a way for me to give back and something I enjoy. I love talking about this stuff because I want to see other people do it, especially young Black leaders. I'm committed to helping them navigate their way through this process.
You just told us that speaking is hard, how much effort, time you have to put in order to deliver a 20-minute speech. But I think writing is just as hard, if not harder. And this is your second book. What motivated you, or where do you learn the skills to become a writer?
So some of it, I believe, honestly, is God-given. I've always been able to express myself on paper with words. Use of words is important. If you know how to use them and where to put them, it kind of resonates with people in a different way. So I've had that help. I have had some training. You know, I've gone through some schools within the military on how to write and things of that nature. And and then the other part of that though is something I enjoy because most of the stuff that I write, and I write articles for Newsweek, and I've written for the Huffington Post and some other periodicals. Most of the stuff I write, it's sincerely trying to help people or address some concern that either we as a people have or we as a nation have. So it's a passion for me. That's why I think I enjoy it, and that's why I'm able to do it.
Well, and I'm enjoying reading it as well. So my last question is there anything that I neglected to ask you that I should have asked you?
No, I think we covered everything. I think we covered it all.
Give us one more wisdom, nugget of wisdom in regards to leadership. How, for a young person, how can they aspire to become better leaders or a leader at all?
Yeah. So I would tell any young person out there, if you are given an opportunity to lead, take and accept that opportunity. One of the things that I've seen happen many times, even happened with one of my children. You know, a quick example: she was the best speller in her middle school spelling class. So she was going to be the person that was going to represent that school in the spelling bee. She told the teacher she didn't want to do it. And so I found out about this and I asked, I said, why didn't you want to do it? She said, I just don't want to do it. I'm nervous. I said, hey, listen, you're the best. So you're supposed to take that challenge. Right. And so I see a lot of young people in business, in the military, when opportunities come their way, they turn them down. And listen, a lot of times that's what people want. They really don't want to, they're offering it to you because they're obligated to, but you turn it down, boom, okay, I'm going over to the next person.
Right.
And so and then what you're giving up then is an opportunity to learn and grow, because there's nothing like being in a leadership position. There's nothing like helping people, and there's nothing like being responsible for something and watching it grow into something positive. And you can't do much of that from the rear. You got to be up front leading to do that.
Right. And when someone offers you an opportunity, it's because they believe or they sense that you can take it.
Yeah, they see something in you don't see in yourself. That's correct.
Right. Yep. Matt, what an amazing conversation. I wonder if we could close it up by you telling us one more time the title of the book and where can the listeners follow the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so the title of my book is Leading While Black: Leadership Lessons and Strategies for Today's Young Black Professionals. And you can find me and all my social media handles on mattdrayton.com. And I will leave you with one quote. No species can survive if they don't provide for their young.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Thanks for having me.